In this episode I want to talk a little bit about producing panoramas directly in Cinema 4D and of course in a very nice quality. What we need for that is of course some information in the scene, and that is normally available when we go here to our content browser and we click here on the skies. We have two folders, weather and skies, and when I open here one, I can choose here among several, and I make this here a little bit bigger. So some are maybe not really exactly where I would suggest to go there, but some are just very nice, and of course it's perhaps only a starting point. And with the control key down I can merge this to this scene here, and then I have already some information inside of the scene. This is normally of course inside of Cinema 4D available, so why to create now a panorama out of that? Because when we use, for example, volumetric clouds or something like that, and we want to have God rays in it and all of these things, then the render time might go up to the sky, literally. And that is of course not what we really want to have. And we want to have consistency. That means we want to go maybe with other areas into the game. That means, for example, After Effects, where we want to use perhaps a panorama in the background, just an image, for example. And then we can't use here this information. We need pixel-based information then. And of course, we can produce here very easily all kinds of skies. And the beauty is, of course, when we have rendered one out, we can go into Photoshop and we maybe add some details in it. We subtract some details, or we mix even several of these skies. So how to get this now finally into a pixel-based image? I want to start with this in a second. The simple way is of course just to go back to our standard setting here, and there we have here our sky object. We can go here to the sun, and we want to use of course all these options. That's a longer story. I can't really explain all of that in one single tutorial, but we need only the information from it. And the beauty is, when we have a sunlight here, we have pretty much HDRI all over the place. The first step that we have to do is to call up just a single sphere. And I go here just to frame default so we can see where we are. And there's a horizon here. And below that horizon there is no real useful information. We have to fill this maybe later on with something else. Maybe a map from Google or something like that, where we get some more floor-based information in it. So let's get started with the whole process here. And we need for this process here just a material. And this is pretty much like our chrome sphere, like I have used this one already in the HDRI series, very quick. And I attach this here to the sphere. The sphere again stays as it is, because only in this state we have the option here to have a render perfect, and that is urgently needed, as I will show you later on. In part 2 we will see a lot of damage that we can do to this setup here, and I want to talk about this because it's fun to play with, but it's also good to know when you have some problems where they come from. And so when I render this now here, I will get the sky object, and I see here something that is related to the camera position. The camera position is of course any camera that we use to finally see inside a picture. Even if we don't have a camera here, there's always the default, or as we have called it in the old days, the editor camera. What we need here is of course something that gives me the reflection as it would be just on a local area, normal direction, so to say. Let's have a look. When we go to the sphere again, we go to text, to Cinema 4D text, and to back texture, and we jump directly to options. Then we can see we have here in options the reflection. That's all we need from this whole part, nothing else. No luminance, no diffusion, nothing, just this. And if we would use the use camera vector, then this camera that we have just seen here in the reflection would be used again. So we don't want to have this also here, everything is just unchecked. So this was simple, and even the optimal mapping, even if it sounds good, don't do that, because then it tries to render a new UV map out. And that is maybe not exactly what you want to have on the end. You might play with it, just press the bake button and see what you get here. I don't go there. I want to go here one time through these parts to give you an idea where we are heading. The basic will have not a lot of work to do here. We can place this toon layer, but it doesn't change the result. So skip that for a moment. And then the tag here. Very important to give this one a name. And we can name this here, for example, with my standard naming convention Pano in California and Cinema 4D and 01. And that's pretty much all I want to do here. And the format. That's maybe another little thing where I would start normally a little rant about some formats. I save you the time here. I go normally to OpenEXR, or if not other options are, I use Photoshop or Photoshop PSB. The option to use here, TIFF, is also given, but TIFF files, if not compressed, are really large, and that's not really something that I like to have in my scenes. Photoshop is more versatile. You can use it pretty much all over the place, and an application that doesn't understand Photoshop, just throw it away. It's that simple. And so OpenEXR is my preference, and this includes, of course, to not use sRGB. sRGB, by the way, is the smallest color space that we should think about. This is maybe nice when you want to post on the internet. Anything else, you shouldn't use it. This is a very small color space. It limits your gamut that you finally get out of the whole thing in a huge way. So for OpenEXR and 32-bit, we go here to linear. And linear is exactly the package that we need here. And I have no idea why I didn't got this here now. So now it's on. Very important. So we have now here exactly done everything in terms of name, file format, and of course OpenEXR was what I wanted to have. And we want to have here, of course, a size that fits to your needs. We have talked about this. This can go into 20, 40, 60, 80,000 pixels wide. I go here just with a very small one because I don't want to waste your time. 2K, which is maybe good enough to post it on the internet, but not really for professional work. But for now, this saves here my purpose. So for the next parameters, I use here the help menu, and if you are new to Cinema 4D, you know already when you go here to one of these parameters with the right mouse click, you can go here to show help, and you get exactly the position of the information that you need. So super sampling, this is something that you need to know. It is independent, of course, from the anti-aliasing, and when I say of course, yeah, it's not naturally, but the whole process has no dependencies to the anti-aliasing would be the right way to say it. And so when you have a checky staircase situation in your image, with super sampling you get this way, and the numbers are 0, it's 1 by 1, that means 1 pixel is rendered and has no idea what's inside or outside. And with the setting to 1, we have already 3 by 3, and with 2 we have 5 by 5, and so on. So it becomes finer and finer. And super sampling, so far I understand it, it's just rendering everything bigger and then scale it down. So it's maybe a little bit time consuming if you go really high with that. Check this out, and we will see what you finally need. It's maybe dependent on the sky that you have. If you have hard edges or everything is very soft, perhaps 0 is already enough. And when you use it only for light, then super sampling is maybe not so important. The next one is continue UVs, and I have called up this here because it's the fastest way to show you that. When it continues, then it just takes the value that it has on the border and continues with that. It doesn't go here then further. So when there's a little bit movement or so, it might produce a problem, but with this it's maybe nicer, and especially when you want to blur things. I think this is more natural when you want to blur the whole sky, when you have too many jaggies inside or something like that. Then this one here would give different information to the border, but it's always case dependent. You might check it out. Like here, I have no idea how this could happen here, that this has grown so big. Leaves me here with the background color, and normally the background color is something that you won't see at all, of course. And in this case, where we have a 360 by 180 format, you shouldn't see anything as well with anything before that we have a pixel border, because we want to have the whole area completely filled with picture information. That is why we stick with the perfect sphere and we don't change anything. So this sums it up already. We can go here shortly to details, and of course we can check here use current render data. I don't know, that's more something where I would think that's a different case, because we want to have a panorama here. Start time, end time, and frame rate. This is more for animations. When you have maybe an animated sky here and you want to capture something like this. But keep in mind, when you want to have really something that is animated and you need the high resolution of maybe 40,000 pixels wide, and that in this case times 90 frames, this is a lot of data. And then the question is, we should maybe stay with the real sky here. That's perhaps faster even. Okay, so what we want to do here is to just press the bake button, and that is all we have to do here. And then it starts already, and this is the whole result here. And I will go then to Photoshop and open it and show you what we got. So this is our high dynamic range panorama. Of course, the top half is all we care about. We have to fill here this maybe with some noise in green and brown, whatever the floor finally would require. I wouldn't leave it that way, because GI would maybe give you some light that doesn't really work with your idea about it. Okay, so let's check it out. When I go here very low, I can see I have a lot of data here inside, and maybe with a really bright sunlight we would get a little bit more. And I will do this, of course. And I go back here to my little scene. I go back to my content browser, and maybe the evening sun is here now, my friend. And this is how easy it is to create a new one. And then I can change here everything that I need, and the production continues here. Maybe I call this here the next row, number 10. And options here, everything is fine. So I can go maybe here into the sun and say I want to have maybe a little bit more power here, intensity, to show you what we can do here. Maybe 1200. That's way over the top, I know, but let's check it out what we get. So I will be back when I open it in Photoshop, and here we go. I have this image now here inside of Photoshop, and of course I can use here, for example, the exposure layer adjustment, and can go here now into my game and check out how much value I get finally inside of this. And of course I can see here pretty much in stops how much I got. The sun itself is pretty bright. The sky has not so many influences in terms of brightness value, but here I have already pretty much from plus to -7, 10 stops, and I can see the sun. So that's not really bad. I could put it even higher and get more dynamic range in it, and perhaps I do this. So I have done something that is maybe beyond the normal sunset setting here. And the value here is beyond the Photoshop setting here. It's 10,000% in Cinema 4D for the sun. And everything else is pretty much normal here, very nicely exposed. So we don't have extreme values. We can use this directly in the background, which I will do, of course, to show you how we can use these things then in Cinema 4D. Yeah, of course. So in Cinema 4D we only have the need to go again, new material, we switch off everything else, we go here to luminance, switch it on, go to load image, and we find here the last one that we did with the very bright sun here. I don't want to have that in my scene because that's just an example here. This is all I need, and then I take here in sky object, and even if that is that small, I get here exactly what I had before in it, and all the clouds are in it. Of course, now pixelated. This is now here just an image, and when I go here then with my figure, for example, and place a standard material on it, and use then global illumination here just with the default settings. I do not go even to say I want to adjust something, but you see it starts rendering, and all the light that I have on my sky object will be used then here on this object. And you see the colorization is very nice. It works very, very simple, fast, and I would think way more stable than to go maybe with something that takes more render time into it, and so on. I hope you liked my little exploration with the baking process. If you have questions, of course, see you in the forum. And please watch part 2 of this sub-series in the series, because I want to go a little bit and take the sphere apart, and maybe more for fun, maybe more for exploration, but that you see what can happen in a production.